Hello, everyone, and welcome to another discussion. Today we're going to be talking about education. One thing I find interesting to note about the liberal thought process is the emphasis placed on education. In a free market, life can be unforgiving and highly competitive. We have thousands of people pursuing their own interests, sometimes making sacrifices, accepting what they can get now for something better in the future. That is one of the fundamental parts of university, as an example. To invest time in an education with the view that it will prepare the student with knowledge and experience in a trade or profession. In this environment, the liberals are also the ones that encourage one of the fundamental parts associated with success in such an economic system, and that is education. I appreciate that Milton Friedman encouraged the free market and discouraged government intervention, whilst at the same time he encouraged improvements to the education system that would help people be more successful and more able to manage life in that system. An emphasis on education goes back to a man considered to be the one who laid out the basic fundamentals of liberal thought, John Locke. John Locke said that the mind is a tabula rasa, or a blank slate, and that it did not contain innate ideas. Another way he put it is that the mind is an empty cabinet, and that education maketh the man. He said, quote, I think I may say that of all the men we meet with, 9 parts of 10 are what they are, good or evil, useful or not, by their education. I'll say that again. I think I may say that of all the men we meet with, 9 parts of 10 are what they are, good or evil, useful or not, by their education. Milton Friedman, in his book Capitalism and Freedom, pointed to the importance of education in relation to maintaining a stable society. He said, a stable and democratic society is impossible without a minimum degree of literacy and knowledge on the part of most citizens, and without widespread acceptance of some common set of values. Education can contribute to both. In consequence, the gain from the education of a child accrues not only to the child or to his parents, but also to other members of the society. The education of my child contributes to your welfare by promoting a stable and democratic society. Close quote. Milton Friedman's frustration was that the education system, being in the hands of the government, was a serious issue in relation to providing adequate educational opportunities for people. He was critical of the system that didn't allow parents enough choice, which leads to lackluster educational outcomes as teachers are not incentivized to educate to a higher standard. He proposed a system that would treat people, whether they are rich or poor, equally. The rich have the wealth to move their children from underperforming schools. The poor are stuck as they do not command the same resources. Milton's solution was to implement a voucher system. A voucher system is still funded by the government, but each person would have a choice through the voucher to spend his or her education money where they want to. If a school was not delivering a quality education to students, the parents were empowered with choice to select a better alternative. There would be adequate consequences to encourage greater outcomes from teachers and school administrators. The voucher system is similar to the system of healthcare I've described in Australia, where companies provide a dollar amount as a benefit for health insurance. That dollar amount is like the voucher. The employee has the freedom to select a plan in the market that best suits them. Two of the voucher experiments that I've seen in the United States are not quite what Milton Friedman had intended. Voucher programs in Washington, D.C. and Milwaukee are primarily government vouchers given to let only poor students get sponsored to go to a private school. There are mixed results, and in many metrics there is, quote, no significant difference found in areas one might explore to determine if the students are benefiting from such a program. These programs are mainly focused on giving students from low socioeconomic backgrounds the opportunity to attend a private school of their choice. What we need to focus on is improving the education system on a whole and elevating the standard of education in public schools. And I suspect that this approach that the U.S. has taken in some instances is not going to achieve that. So we have to look elsewhere. There are many countries that have had or do have a voucher program for schools, including France, Sweden, Ireland, and Hong Kong. The closest example to the vision that Milton Friedman had was in Chile. In 1981, Chile implemented a universal voucher system. Under the new voucher system, there was a number of new schools that opened, and enrollment increased between 20 to 40% over a given period of time. I suspect there's an ideological battle going on in relation to the voucher system. It is a highly political, considering The voucher system is an initiative to introduce greater competition to what many people feel should not be part of education. Some prefer to call in an introduction of greater choice. There are some studies and articles that provide positives of the programs, and some that provide negatives. I'll post what I've gathered with a few resources so you can read them for yourself and make up your own mind. To further Milton Friedman's point, he didn't isolate his speeches and public lectures to the wealthy areas of the United States. He gave a lecture in Harlem advocating for education reform, and his views were met with skepticism during the Q&A period. When I hear criticisms of the liberal path, the path of education, liberty, and freedom, it is often on that views that liberal order of things is lacking in compassion. Now, I want to share with you some of the words of Milton Friedman in relation to this. And he's referring specifically to disadvantaged young African Americans in Harlem at the time of the address. The person examining Milton Friedman at that time said his voucher system would not be a panacea, and Milton replied with this: "There are no panaceas, but in the particular terms you are raising, you've got the situation exactly upside down. In my opinion, there's not a single thing you could do in this world that would do more to improve the condition of the black people who are in the lowest income classes, of the black people who've been most affected by discrimination. There's not anything you could do that would be more effective than the voucher scheme. Why? Because as I said to you before, and I challenge anyone to deny it, that there's no respect in which the black in the slum is more deprived than in the quality of schooling he can get. He's much worse off in that respect, than he is even in the quality of houses he can get, and in the quality of an automobile he can get, and the quality of job he can get if given an education. I agree with you that the poor educational qualifications have had further effects carry through life in leading him to have fewer opportunities to improve his economic conditions. But if we want to improve his economics, we want to enable him to be a more productive and more valuable and more useful person, and the way to do that is first of all to improve his schooling. And how do we improve his schooling? The only effective device to improving there is for his schooling, and that anyone has suggested is to give the parents more control, to introduce the competition and the drive of private school, private market to improve the quality of schooling that is available to him. Now you say I assume perfect competition. Those are all words. I don't assume anything of the kind. I assume you have a world of the kind you have. In this world, in the kind you have, you do not have perfection. That's for the next world. We'll have to wait till we get there, and we don't look forward to it very much. In this world, you have imperfection. The question is, how do we have the least imperfect world? We're not going to eliminate all the problems. We're not going to eliminate feelings of racism, of course, not. But we can try to follow policies that will minimize their adverse effects. We can try to follow policies which will give those people who have a desire to improve their own conditions, who've had no prejudice, who want to hear people. We want to have a society in which they have the greatest opportunity to do so. By introduction of competition, by making it possible to have a variety of different schools and different choices, just consider what would happen if the parents in Harlem, each one of them separately, had the possibility of disposing of $1,500 per child per year for the schooling of that child. Do you mean to say there wouldn't be a flowering of schools of all kinds? I'll bet there are a dozen people who would set up schools to try and meet that demand. Look at what's happening with those small private schools that have set up under terribly difficult circumstances. If I go to the other end of the country, if I go to Oakland, California, there's a small preschool in the suburbs of Oakland set up by the Black Panthers. In California, it's the most effective preschool that there is around. It's done a better job of any other schools in giving kids who come an opportunity really to get an education. So I'm pleading your case, sir. If you'll pardon me, you're repeating in your words formula you've learned. You are not thinking for yourself. So look at the world as it is. Now, hearing words like this, I have little doubt in the desire of Milton Friedman to deliver quality education, particularly to those who need it most. To deliver to those empty cabinets the gems and precious pearls of knowledge, experience, insight, mathematics, history, geography, carpentry, and any other type of education that will ensure the students will be a productive member of society. The issue relates to how we achieve that goal, and the liberal order often involves a hard change. At times, it involves sacrifice. There's always opposition in life, and it's not different in relation to changing the education system to deliver better outcomes for parents and students. To discover how hard it is to change, I will look at another program by Milton Friedman titled Free to Choose. In this program, he interviews the teachers entrenched in a system that rewards them for simply showing up, but does not provide the incentive for excellence. At a school in the south of England, an experiment was soon to be run about giving parents more choice, and the headmaster at this particular school, who happened to also be the secretary of the local teachers' union, he expressed his disapproval by saying that he objected to the type of marketplace philosophy that is involved with giving parents more choice. Milton Friedman goes on to say that it is a choice. It is the choice that this man objects to. It is the freedom for parents to choose what is best for his children or her children that he objects to. Now, if there is anyone that knows what is best for their child, it's the parents, and they should have great involvement in these decisions, rather than being dictated to at every step of the way by bureaucrats that think that they can make a better decision about their own children. As Milton says in relation to taxes for government programs, no one can spend your money better than you can. And I say it is the same with parenting.